Thank you, Ali. Amazing introduction, and just so enjoying the speeches tonight. Incredible. Right click. Can I thank Fran for the scarf as well? Yeah. We are humanity, and we exist on this earth. But how do we know when we have reached the pinnacle of human development? We all begin life in the same way, as babies. Each of us have the same innate need for safety, for nurturing, and for pleasure. From infancy, we are hardwired to respond to soothing touch, which reassures our nervous system that basic needs can be met, that we are accepted, that we are lovable, that we are enough. We develop attachments which allow us to explore the world from a secure base until we get our hearts broken. Right, Annabelle? My name is Dee Larsen. That's me. And I work as a somatic sex educator in the city of Belfast. And I wasn't always a sex person. My job for 15 years was with looked after children, supporting them to overcome trauma and abuse. Growing up in Ireland, school was an all-girls Catholic convent. Pleasure was a sin and never discussed. And as a teenager, I felt disconnected, shy, and deeply body conscious. What interests me in the work, that's mass, for any of you who don't know. What interests me in the work is what supports and hinders our sexual freedom and our capacity to experience pleasure. So, if you're willing, let's delve a little deeper. Take a breath. Have you ever experienced unwanted touch? These are flying through, just a moment. Were you ever taught about your sexuality as you grew up? And have you ever felt unsafe to express your wishes or desires? What impact, for example, does shame have in our experience and our capacity to experience pleasure? Some of you in this room may have grown up in an unsafe household, or, like my childhood, living in a community where violence and discrimination was a part of everyday life. We survive these experiences by checking out of unsafe situations, and some of the speakers have spoke about this evening, not being fully present. It was later on, much later in my life, that I realized my own tension in my own body, the awkwardness, that I had endured touch that I didn't want. And sex seemed to be something that happened to me, and communication about pleasure was just non-existent. I later learned through the words of Dr. Peter Levine that trauma is in the nervous system, not in the event. So we're carrying this around in our bodies. So what needs to be present for each of us to reach self-actualization, sexual liberation, or like the best sex ever? What do we need to embody freedom? Emily Nagoski is the author of a groundbreaking book titled Come As You Are. Hands up if you read it. Read it. She talks about things that enhance pleasure and things that reduce pleasure. She calls them accelerator and breaks. So let's think about what the breaks might be. What inhibits our sexual expression? Shame from education or lack of it. Influences via family from our culture. Body objectification, what we should be like through advertising. Comparison, I'm not enough in some way, and a lot of people, particularly people I'm working with, their first way that they learn about sex is through a screen, and the porn industry is not a representation of real life. Another break is overtaking an abusive experience that happens outside of our consent. Disassociation, when we zone in or don't feel fully present. So basically, breaks are things that feel wrong. But what if you're not fully feeling? Accelerators. What do we need to really ramp up feeling good and feeling pleasure? Paramount for pleasure is a sense of safety. We know medically, this is an accelerator, because the image of an accelerator was just a pedal and then you didn't know that it was an accelerator. Paramount for pleasure is a sense of safety. We're teaching people about the nervous system, and engorgement of your genitals happens only when you're in a parasympathetic state. That means chilled, okay, when you feel safe, okay? Communication supports us in a shared meaning. It helps us build that connection and that sense of intimacy, trust, and being held. And respect, being witnessed. And basically, this is what I did. Ali said I was a social worker, and I worked with basically the sense of what children need to grow up into self-actualization. So I made this into sexual freedom, because it's where I'm at right now. So what do we need to do? We need to teach people. We need to teach people that arousal is activated with safety, but we also know that excitement helps us orgasm. There's something about that newness, that taboo, that danger, that risk, that causes a little bit of excitement. And quite often I'm seeing clients in my practice who express that they're bored with the same routine in sex. In her book, Mating in Captivity, Esther Perel says there is a powerful tendency in long-term relationships to favour the predictable over the unpredictable. But then she goes on to say, what we actually do is create the conditions for making us feel uninterested anymore. And Jack Moran, in his book on Core Erotic Theme, says a brilliant equation, if you like equations: attraction plus obstacle equals excitement. So there's a rush of needing something new, something different, something we can't quite have, that really gets the speedometer going. The interesting thing is that we have a nerve that innervates most of our internal organs and also our genitals. And it's called the dorsal vagus nerves. And basically the dorsal vagus nerve cannot differentiate between excitement and fear. It's a very close line. And I have a theory that somehow some of the things that make us anxious or traumatized, if we look into Jack Moran's theory, that sometimes we can turn something that was negative into something that is actually hot. So that risk between safety and excitement. Where we can play with risk and taboo in a safe container. Where we can turn something that might not be okay into a sexually arousing situation. So how do we support that, and how do we make it work in real life? And I've learned through my own experience the importance of working with the entire body. When we are working with such close correlation between excitement and fear, then we really need to be clear with each other what is going on. And we really need to listen and trust our body. When I'm supporting my clients to tune into their body, there are 3 things that I support them to do. First of all, I get them to notice what's happening. And quite often that can be a very difficult place to go for people who've experienced trauma or abuse, especially people from Belfast. And then I get them to not just notice, but give value to what they experience in their body. Because quite often we sense a feeling, but we don't think it's as important as what other people think or need or desire. So we can feel a sense that it's not okay, but we override it with what we think the other person might need, or it's not okay. So notice what you want, value what you want, voice what you want. Hot sex requires full mind-body presence from both partners, where they are tuned and connected to one another's arousal, where they are fully present in their own body. Dan Siegel says pleasure is a bottom-up experience. Only through education about body, knowing yourself, communication and self-exploration can we weave in a sense of excitement from this place of safety. Thank you so much for listening.